One probably is already good afternoon. So, well, we had a little bit of review what we may do today. It's nothing very different than what we planned, which is surprising. But I think there's still time to get in a different mode. But still, we have a pattern which we follow. And good evening, sir. Almost. So we as every morning we had this smart partners face-to-face, which is a close face-to-face, tete-a-tete or heart-to-heart, and which is not webcasted, it's not recorded, a different from the think tanking session that we follow, and which is being live webcasted to selected members who are more active and smart partners. And we were a little bit kind of too rushed last night with the locus and the bee and all the rest of it, but the intention was to show you some feedback that has been received from those who participated virtually yesterday afternoon and the day before. We may be able to do that by the end of this morning think-tanking session. So we were actually quite interested in locus and the bee. I specifically put in the agenda locus and the bee rather than other things, and that's the book. Not because we are advertising the book. There is nothing to do with that. And not because it's the best thing that Josh tried in a short time to tell us about. But because it was stimulating. Probably you were interested at the end of the day, very tired, to know what is all this locus and the bee. And we found out that there are lots of bees, maybe that the whole movement is. Or a definition of a smart partner is a smart bee. Yeah? So, one of the things that he mentioned by the locus of the bee was the association of locus to the predatory. And although he did that, and I don't intend to discuss now about it, our directors met in August, and one of the things that we kind of entertained as a directors face-to-face were some wisdom from this other kind of thing called predatory thinking. It is not locus thinking, but very, very useful, very stimulating, particularly in relation to things like wisdom about the involvement, the definition of involvement and commitment, or the difference between involvement and commitment, and quite a number of other things. The directors, CPTM directors and the chairman will have a 145, a directors face-to-face, and they could share with you some of the things that we dealt with as early morning in August. This predatory thinking is about outthinking the competition. So it goes back to cooperation. If you outthink competition, what else could it be? So it's not the locus, but just by the way of. Now, going back to also the smart partnership values, which are part of the limitless, the principles of the smart partnership practice. It's based on principles, not on rules. Principles. in the limitless opportunities, limitless is an outcome, and therefore is a delivery. We went through values. We said ideas and intellectual equity because of values, and then causative things. And then, of course, all that is only taking place because there is something that is taking place. Not linear, of course. Things happen quite. You might start with delivery and maybe, yeah. But it's based on some smart partnership values, otherwise you wouldn't deliver quickly and you had some ideas from other people. Or you start with ideas and then you get into try to see, do I trust? And then you get in delivery. So while we take one by one, values, ideas, delivery, you know if you think fast or think slow, or you do smart thinking, as we said, these values, ideas, and deliveries happen at the same time, have to be at the same time. I chose, before I asked Andrew again to get us into delivery, I chose another, maybe I told you this, but another think tanking, fast think tanking slow. And this time is about the misunderstanding of randomness, yeah? Because quite a lot of time, and most of the time, if you really think about it, the random events are making you thinking that there is a systematic something, conspiracy or something that is taking place. So there is this misunderstanding of randomness when you think fast. That doesn't mean you need to think slow, you need to think both. But so here it is. There is about the fact that in a hospital, yeah, the sequence of boys and girls who are born in a hospital could be of the following type, yeah? Boy, 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 girl, 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 the sequence of, yeah? They could be girl, 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 or boy, 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 yeah? But let's say girl, girl, girl. Or it could be boy, girl, boy, boy, girl, boy. Which of these sequences is most likely?
None.
Yeah.
Something else?
Anything
else? Henry, where is Henry?
I've just said none. Told you none. Oh, I would say none as well. We had go, 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 go.
Okay. Actually, all three sequences are equally likely. And what it means is that if you look at some kind of random pattern,
Boy, 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 most likely. 52%.
no, I think they're equally.
Actually, that's not correct. If we say they are all equally like, what you mean is they are all 33.3, 33.3, which is false because there are so many other possibilities.
Yeah.
So none is like.
Well, actually, no, it's equally with all. No, it's equally with all. Anyway, the thing is, you probably realize that this is very much connected, that's what I was Henry, with statistics, which produce many observations, I'm counting, that appear to beg for causal explanation, but do not let themselves to such explanation. Many facts around us are due to chance, including accidents of sampling. Causal explanation of chance events are inevitably wrong. Anyway, that's the thing. I leave you to think on that. So the only other thing that I showed separately from Kahneman because Mbuso, the top of civil servants in Swaziland and one of our smart partners in Service Link, was interested in happiness. Yeah. Well, there is something I put in the overall pack about no minister, and it's very interesting that some stories from the White House for anybody who is in cabinet in civil service, but also by Joel Wade, he's the author of Mastering Happiness. And the reason why I'm raising it up is in relation to delivery, yeah? Because I'm going to keep, you have it in this brief, yeah? That I put, Daniel put around. He's saying it's possible to think in a way that makes us afraid of challenges, anxious of novelty and innovation, likely to give up easily, reluctant to adapt and learn the experiences. But it's also possible to think in a way that makes challenges fun, exciting, novelty delightful, perseverance to adversity the norm, and adapting and learning from experience joyful. Now, there are some thoughts in this small piece of paper which are very interesting, in particular in relation to the difference between the mindsets that are oriented towards growth. They are saying a growth mindset, yeah, is changeable and dynamic, and therefore is optimistic, problem-solving mindset, delivery mindset. So that's my contribution to this type for Andrew. I'm not happy for the base case, but Andrew.
Well, just one or two thoughts from yesterday, and as we, like these, build our collective wisdom, they're not really my thoughts, they're sort of thoughts sort of gathered from all of us. One thought is something I got from Omar this morning when we were talking just in a small group in the green room. Equity. We're going for win-win solutions, like constructed bees. But Omar made a very good point. This is not some magic formula. The equity means that it's not a half-half. So our search for win-win is based on a fundamental sense of fairness. So, as he pointed out, equity may mean that actually one person is winning 80% and the other person gets 20%, depending on what you put in. I think it's a very important principle because we don't live in an abstract world which we've got created here based on formulae. We have to relate ourselves to the fundamental values of the outside world where we hope to make a constructive role. The second thing which I was thinking of, and again I mentioned this in a small group this morning, is we have flexibility from confidence. And the example of that would be that yesterday afternoon I felt some of our colleagues in what I call the northeastern corner of the room were aware that the agenda was not actually strictly followed because His Excellency the Deputy Prime Minister didn't begin with quality and standards, but began with financial inclusion. And I adumbrated the idea that there are only two people who can depart from Mikhaila's agenda with impunity. One is His Excellency, DPM, and the other is Mikhaila herself. but actually, it is a kind of self-writing mechanism. Actually, it all worked out well, and that was a tribute, I think Mikhaila said, not to Mikhaila, but to all of us. It worked out well to everyone, because in fact, the big issues about how we can help and deliver at the grassroots were covered on both topics, on financial inclusion and on quality and standards, by a number of contributions. And I'm just thinking, in particular, this is not to be discriminatory, but just to pick up Ellie, I remember Kathy, who I don't see here now, and then people who talked about quality and standards from their respective countries. We had Anthea from Barbados, Teko from Botswana, and Lomkosi, particularly impressive, because what she said was that in approaching the grassroots, he wants to take people from a position of disempowerment or victimization and fatalism. Oh, this is a poor product. Oh, my poor luck. In Eastern Europe, there's a phrase, schmulag, which means my life is bad, into a position of empowerment and saying we have rights.
That's the mindset.
Yeah, and that's the mindset. So, and the third thing I want to say a word about is ignorance. Not knowing about things and not admitting that you don't know. And this was, of course, well taken up yesterday by Jeff Mulgan. In what I think everyone thinks was a brilliant session. I think this would be a good moment, if I may say so, having slightly made a joke at Mihaila's expense earlier, to say that we're also grateful to Mihaila for the quality of the people that have come to do these sessions. I think we should give her a round of applause. She's embarrassed now, but the point is, these people do not just call by and say, Mihaila, I'm quite important, I'm quite clever, can I come to your thing? They have to be sought out. So Mihaila's role as super node is actually extremely important. So I know she wouldn't like me saying that, but I think it deserves to be said. Now, on this question of ignorance, it was in this month of November, 130 years ago, that Otto von Bismarck summoned a whole lot of people to discuss the future of Africa in Berlin. And it was said that only 2 of the people there had ever been to Africa. So actually, this is a question where the question of ignorance is very important. And I just think that we really ought to address this. And this links into my last point. In the session that I was in the green room, ably chaired by Dion, where we had very much a leading Barry and the Seychelles, but also Botswana and Barbados. A lot of analyses were made, and Alan picked out a number of key points, issues that should be worked on. And in this area where there are all sorts of factors where nations may succeed or fail, we shouldn't evade the issue. And here I call for another thing, rigor. We shouldn't evade the issues which are, in which of these many areas can we as smart partners help? Because obviously if it's something connected with American drones or the international financial system or China, we have not much power over what those people do. But there are certain areas where we do have power. Luke was talking about this morning, where we can actually start to set benchmarks and so on. So I would say that among the values that we should go for is a certain rigorous honesty, which says what can be our role and how can we specifically help. So those are my thoughts.
Well done.
You want to take the floor?
No.
Calm down.
Now, I have one thing to say. I agree 100% about the quality of people that you brought.
No, but that's
Whether you take credit or not,
no,
it
but
doesn't
that's
matter.
not the issue.
What's
Come
the
on,
issue?
this is income.
You should take credit.
Actually, let me tell you, Luke is one of the very few cabinet secretaries, and probably most of the cabinet secretaries, but we don't know them well, in addition to Michel and so on, who actually understand the power of networks. The reason why he's here is, of course, for His Majesty and so on, but he relates to networks and to all the signals that we do more than many other people. And he demonstrates that civil service, actually, their power is on network, but they don't say so. Yeah, they hide behind rules and civil service. So that's why the voting is not.
No. I'll tell some other good news first, and I want the other partners to know. One of your main partners in Swaziland, the governor of the central bank,
Yes.
has just been appointed to the Minister of Finance.
No, really.
Now the network is moving to the next level.
That's the power of network. We have about, let's say, any feedback to Andrew on smart partners, values, ideas, and delivery. No, you don't. Whoever wants to go ahead to say something.
I can't give you here.
Feedback as well.
It's not feedback, it's kind of, I mean, we are all complaining all the time in our own, wherever we are. I do that here too, about lack of delivery and outcomes and all that. So the question is probably, I expect it to be the most exciting discussion this morning. Otherwise, we are all probably convinced that if there are smart partnership values and ideas come, the delivery will follow, so it's nothing to talk about. I don't know.
General might be wanting to give some feedback from our session yesterday, which you dragged back into the right direction. Thank you. Talking about delivery, we were listening to the desire to aim for a diamond shape from a pyramid shape.
Some to the other.
It was that discussion previously. But the problem that was raised yesterday, and it is feedback, but it's a fact, that when we leave a dialogue, we say the country must get on with it. And in some cases, the country gets on with it. But in many cases, the country is distracted by... There's the cell phone. In some cases, the country is distracted by other agendas, or its own agendas, or other crises, or whatever. And something that is said to us many times is, why is it that you have these dialogues with the top people and then you go away and we hear nothing more? And it was said again yesterday by one of the 29ers. Half of Tanzania is under the age of 20. 80% of Tanzania is in the bush, one way or another. Many of the people in Tanzania don't get enough food to eat. What is being done to improve their situation arising from the dialogue? And the comment was made by somebody in our session, what are we doing about mentoring? What can we do? We don't want to be consultants, but is there a place, discussion at board or wherever, to take it forward beyond the dialogue? Because to stop at the dialogue is not sufficient. That's the point. Sorry
Deputy
about
Prime
this
Minister,
silence.
probably Deputy Prime Minister will kind of do an overall. Deputy Prime Minister.
Do what?
Well, what do you,
Dr. Michael?
what do you think that delivery, smart partnership types of delivery could be? Not dialogues in Tanzania and so on, these are specific things, but in generic terms, so many things are being all the time not discussed only, but they are absorbed, and the values are absorbed, the behavior change, ideas come more. Now, the idea of trying to see what is the delivery, maybe the delivery is just that, a mindset, a growth mindset, which means bees, work as bees, and also with a purpose, because you can't be a bee unless you have a purpose. So the fact that people doubt that there is no purpose, even in what the think tank in that one day, or the dialogue, I mean, nobody is paid to be a bee. So, please.
I don't know. I'm sure that all of us wants to be bees.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Michaela, when we talk about delivery, specifically for this movement, this morning I was thinking about it, not really about delivery as we know, that you can measure and benchmark, but delivery as a movement. Now, a movement have got one important characteristic, and that characteristic is that it should grow. It should grow. It should have an ideology that grows, that takes root in many, many other people. And then I ask myself to look back at my own experience I have been, I'm a mobilizer in my political party. And I did that when I was very, very young. I was a very good one. But I came across examples where the party got stagnated in some areas. And the reason is that you get some members who are happy to be members themselves and leaders themselves. They end there. And you ask them now, look, what are you doing to allow the party to grow? Because it is not enough to become a member of a party and to become a leader of a party. Because the purpose of a party is to grow and to reach the level where you can win elections, and where you can reach many people. If you don't, I mean, your leadership will end somewhere very abruptly. Now, this movement, for example, is so important, but it will only be important if it grows. Our delivery should be in allowing the movement to grow, in sowing the seeds where it have not yet been sown amongst people. And in making sure that the ideology, for a lack of good words, I will call it an ideology. I'm not an Englishman. It's a third language. But that the concept of win-win situation takes root in many people around us. So if we are able to do that, then I think that will be the best delivery that we could do. In this case, it is important to come to these meetings and to share experiences, and of course to learn from each other and to learn new things, accumulate knowledge. But back home, I thought what we call hubs is so important, because that is where we can share what we have learned here and our experiences here with other people who have never heard about the movement, who have never accepted the movement's concept of a win-win situation. So if we are able to create as many hubs as possible and to expose as many people as possible and to convince as many people as possible to allow the movement to flow amongst our communities and to live the concept of a win-win situation, then I think that will be the best delivery that we could have achieved in the movement. Of course, benchmarking the achievement and delivery in this movement cannot be separated from the concept of spread the news, let it go, let people understand that there is a better way of amicably living together and creating a platform or an opportunity of a win-win situation. So personally, I think that is the delivery that we should maybe look at and see how each in your area of responsibility can try to promote. Now, the last thing that I want to say is, and I would say it even if we are here for the next 10 years, that every time I come from these meetings, I have got a different way of looking at things. Because I listen and I learn, not because I want to listen and learn for myself, But because I want to listen and learn from others and to get back to my office to see how I can use what I have learned from here in terms of treating the people who are working with me, in terms of improving my own performances, in terms of looking at issues in a different way that I never knew, and in terms of accepting that I am not the best in any case, apparently. There are many other people who are the best. But most of all, in terms of accepting that every human being have got something that you can learn from. Thank you, Michaela.
No, thank you. Do you better than DPF?
No, it's better.
No.
Can't be
Or
better.
built on?
Can't be better.
Built on.
I only wanted to add what the Dr. Grima has said. He talked about party, about the seed. Delivery comes from pregnancy.
You stay with that.
You can't deliver.
Ellie. Stay with that.
Yes, I think it's better here. Delivery comes from pregnancy. And it must be a healthy pregnancy. So, and that seeing is and then it must also go to nurturing. I was reading that mothers who eat junk food produce children who are likely to be stressful and have mental problems. So the nurturing is very important. Then the delivery itself. I was watching clinic cases. So even at the delivery, now, and then what to expect also, but which now brings in, I'll talk about chance and luck. But in my opinion, what we get from the quality, because if it is seed, as the plant has said, what type of seed? If it is a plant, you must look for the good seed. If it is a party, you must look for good cadres. If it is a movement, you must look for the brains. Now, the brains we get in smart partnership, thanking inhalers, connections, and networking, I think is the best seed one can find for humanity. Secondly, nurturing. The networking is such a good nurturing that keeps us abreast and in tune with the latest, whether it is supercomputers or it is one method. I think that nurturing is very important, but of course we always bring it down to grassroots. When it comes to the delivery period, the time we spend here, what we call quality time, I think is so great, is so good quality time, that as the Professor has said, you don't live here the same person. And why can't you deliver after that? Now, delivery also assumes that if what you're going to deliver is heresy, it means it has capacity to pregnant others. Which means when we live here, with all these great ideas, we are empowered to go and empower many others. And that's what we create sustainability. Now, on the question of chance and luck, which was talked about, those who toward seem to have a bias. They have a high affinity towards discipline and hard work. You cannot expect to be lucky or to have to be chanced if you don't work hard or you are not disciplined.
Hey, but I mean, Alan. Probably by 10:15 we'll move on.
Tunnel bees. Becoming a bit warm. Time to start flipping your wings. Huh? I would like to follow up on the Deputy Prime Minister about bringing new adepts to our club, so to speak. Most of us in this room have been associated with the Smart Partnership movement for some years. And as a citizen of the world, I travel a lot, because I also speak many languages. I am invited in various parts of the world. And I explain the Smart Partnership movement And something very important to bring new adepts is to be able to explain what are the deliverables, not the deliveries, but the deliverables. What are we supposed to bring to the world to attract new adepts? And I think we, at this point in time, it would be important to build on what we have been discussing to try and formulate and consolidate the type of deliverables that the Smart Partnership movement can bring, so that we can indeed not only convince those who are already convinced, but bring new blood and new contributions. And I think we have a wealth of deliverables that we can formulate and then communicate upon. Maybe we will be discussing that later this morning. I'm ready myself to contribute, I have contributed, but I think we have to do this exercise. What are the main deliverables of this movement with which we can convince others to join us? Deputy Prime Minister, I think that we have a good material that we have to be able to communicate better. And it was interesting at the global dialogue in Dar es Salaam. For the first time, there were some francophone heads of state and government. They came, and they came maybe out of friendship for their colleagues attending the global dialogue. But they came also, and I heard about that, because, for instance, we made a presentation at the ISO General Assembly on the Quality and Standards Initiative. And I have heard of that presentation in South America, where I was 2 weeks ago, and they said, what is this Smart Partnership movement? First, how do you translate that in Spanish or in French?
In Russian.
In Russian, that's maybe even more difficult. But anyhow, so I think that we have not only to work on deliveries, but deliverables. And as bees, we have 3 main deliverables, 2 positive, 1 negative. One is that we, as bees, we pollinize the world and we help the world to survive. This is absolutely fundamental. And I think this is, you could draw some parallels with the Smart Partnership deliveries. Second is that as bees we produce honey, which is sweet and nice, and something that you share with other people. But bees also produce venom, and so when they deliver it, they die. So we will skip that, and we will concentrate on pollinization and honey, which are very nice things that we can translate in Smart Partnership vocabulary.
Before you go, Alan.
I'm going to sit over there.
No, before you take the before you do that, yeah, you said about communicating delivery, yeah. There is one of the mega trends that we want you to connect with. It's about this redefining literacy, yeah. And the reason why that is so is because in a world of screens, that it is your mobile or television or anything, wherever you go, with your car, yeah, the need for redefining literacy is probably one of the major, and we don't quite know how to deal with that. And that is not only to do with how you communicate, because literacy means to receive and to communicate. It's not just to. And what Martin Scorsese, probably you know. I'm sorry I keep showing you books. You like you are very booky, but there are ideas. But yeah, it does matter. But Martin Scorsese is probably look. Martin Scorsese,
film director,
a very well-known film director, and so on. But he was very preoccupied about it, and he says that the brain sees pictures first. And from there you can go on about what the words can do, the language and so on. And it's very essential actually for nurturing literacy in a completely different way. And of course that is going on the whole life. And delivery is perceived because of that. Delivery as a group, as a movement, but delivery at the individual level, because that's what we're talking about. Yeah, the values are at the individual level, and collectively overall there is a movement. Yeah. So that's all what I'm saying. That's very useful. It's better than the locking. Okay. Anybody else who was just let the lady.
Okay.
Yeah, Jennifer from Malta. We haven't had the Maltese.
Shall we come over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will have to finish to go together.
So I just wanted to draw, as we were discussing, it occurred to me that there's quite a lot of similarities in the discussion when we try to justify foresight approaches and what impact investing in forward-looking activities, how they affect current policies. And there's a lot of discussion about this. In fact, I was I was involved in a Nesta report, which was looking at the impact of foresight on innovation policy. And one of the things we found was that when evaluations take place of foresight activities, it's normally focused very much on how well the process was undertaken and less well on the ultimate impacts. And this is probably something that we need to think a little bit about. But I also wanted to just say that there are sort of some links between the foresight approach and I think the CPTM smart partnership, and it's linked with the values. And the open participatory aspect, which is very strong in foresight, bringing, encouraging ownership, so that eventually you buy in your stakeholders and they go out and take action, follow-up action themselves. And I think also the way that the process is undertaken with the pictures, and the scenarios is very important, because you're not just focusing on forecasting, you're not just sort of extrapolating trends, but you're actually interested in trend breaks, because that's how transformation takes place, and you're getting new pictures coming into people's minds on different ways the future can go. So I think
don't go. Actually, one of the outcomes of the movement are people like Jennifer. She was actually a student when Father Peter at the Malta Council for Science and Technology, Professor Saracino, and Noel Zabardani brought her in to do Vision 2020, Malta, and many other things. So if we talk about deliverable, or maybe we talk about outcomes, as Omar said, they're actually people themselves, go back to people. So I don't know if we can say that, but you are one of our Jennifer, you are my inspiration. Thank you very much. Very good. She tried to get Macedonian government to recognize London. I'm part of Macedonia. She was in Macedonia, but she wanted to be here this morning. Anybody else? That's Jennifer. Yen, and we'll close with Yen. Yen, don't tell us how we failed to deliver.
No, just to show the opposite. I just want to pick up what Aaron said about the bees and the three deliverables. I think that perspective he gave was from the humanist perspective, but the bee, from the bee's point of view, is only one product, honey. And from our perspective, this most important deliverable is pollination. Yeah. So if you apply it to CPTM, yeah, probably say our main product, the honey, are the dialogues, the thinking. But pollination is probably more akin to the networking that we don't do. That it doesn't organize, but it happens. And that's probably our most important product. That happens because we contact, we pick up ideas, and something comes out of that. So, yeah, that's what that perspective. But the venom does. I leave that to the others. Yeah, I can build it on later, but that's too innovative. Yeah.
The vision. If Umpo doesn't pollinate through the vision, all the from the kind of village to the top. I don't know who was there. He's probably one of the best pollinators in Botswana, in the movement. And we participated into that too. So that's a very, very vivid example. I suppose we could get back to this when we discuss about future directions. We'll have one more kind of issue somehow to try to clarify or confuse ourselves or whatever it is. Keep it for future directions. Pin it down. Don't lose it. Okay. So there is about innovation, and the idea was that why do we talk about innovation again, inclusion, when we already talk about technology inclusion Thursday in the afternoon. We did say that this issue of the smart partnership algorithm will say that we shouldn't call it algorithm because algorithm means a recipe and you have to follow, am I right? But this is a smart partnership algorithm, so it's flexible and about how nations can succeed rather than fail. We put emphasis on leveraging technology because that's what we are going to continue to want to do towards South Africa, but also because that is what's happening around us. So there are we all know that the innovation is a vague concept. The innovation is a very attractive buzzword. It became a buzzword. It became actually a non-word. And when people say, I have an innovation policy, you just switch off. I have a budget for innovation. You kind of do anything you want under that. But, so, Henry, who is minister, probably will tell you, and Omar, who even, wrote his experience there, will tell you that. So it will be useful to probably demolish the innovation with the help of Stephen, who came from Zurich, and he's part of, he will tell us what he's part of. But don't look that he's very young. He has, he's picking up a number of things on behalf of a number of people that he'll tell us about, which are unconventional, for the purpose, as unconventional as they can make it, for the purpose of trying to get us to what really happened. So he will have a case, it looks like, against innovation, but in fact, you'll see what he's ending with. And then, of course, Luke and Omar will try to do the reverse, and then we'll see what happens. So the innovation is specifically put at the end of this think tank session, because it's innovation in vision, innovation in quality, and innovation in financial inclusion, innovation in technology inclusion. So, Stephen, come. Yeah? By the way, you see on your on the various spread around abstracts, you won't see this one that is going to introduce you, but Stephen will tell you there are abstracts for which we thank very much. In the last 3 years, or 2 years, we received really stimulus of this abstract, which went everywhere from the think tank he is leading, with Sarasan, supported by Sarasan Bank. And he did the same. He sent by post about 100 or so abstracts, power of making, defense, and he has a few of these, which was probably the most wanted. Is it because of Silva?
It seems so.
Okay, please.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here and to talk shortly about innovation. And as Michaela said, to be a little bit critical. First of all, I'm afraid I'm not that young as I look. It's probably due to Swiss air or the water. I don't really know what it is about. But I'm here to share.
62.
38.
29 or where is going?
38.
Very good. Swiss air must be very good.
So, I'm here to share some critical thoughts about innovation. The main thesis is that, as Michaela said, it is probably one of the vaguest words that is around, and that we actually have not understood how it works in many ways. So the search for a recipe for innovation is either still going on, or it is maybe a continuous thing we will do for the rest of our times, and maybe that is good. Before I continue, just quickly about our think tank. WIRE is an interface between science and... WIRE stands... Very complicated, but sorry. WIRE stands for Web for Interdisciplinary Research and Expertise. So we try to understand how the present or how the future looks like based on an interdisciplinary approach. So we do not only look at economical concepts or technologies or social trends, we try to combine it all. And we are at the interface of the Technical University of Zurich, the ETH, Federal Institute of Technology, and together with the Bank Saracen, that's a bank that's basically interested in long-term trends. So we try to translate academic knowledge to the practice. We work with companies and we work with governments. And one aspect next to the interdisciplinarity which differentiates us is that we put a lot of effort in bringing the information to people in a way they can understand it. So this is why our books always look a little bit different. This one is silver shiny, the other one is made in another way. So we think, as Martin Scorsese, that in case that ideas are understood, they need to be translated in a way that people really get it. And I think this will be one important aspect also for smart partnerships. Yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing. Oh, I'm a biochemist by background, so please excuse if there's some technical terms in use. Sorry. Yeah, and some biases as well. We don't get rid of them. Now, before I start, I really like the metaphor of the bee. Because, of course, bees share a common vision, and they are very committed to bring that vision to practice. And I think this is one very important aspect if we talk about innovation. However, there is one aspect which I do not agree with, because bees actually are not known for critical thinking. They just take orders and they deliver it. And if we want to thrive for innovation, I think there is other competencies or things we need to know, so which is critical thinking for ourselves. So that part we rather should be, I don't know, cats, some animal that actually does things we don't understand, that are not predictable. Squirrels, yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, so I think we should be squirrels or cats, but why? I think we all agree that innovation is crucial today for European countries as well for African countries and for Asian countries, due to many reasons. We have a lack of resources, we have climate changes to deal with, we have a lot of other problems, and I would say most challenges that we're facing could be dealt with innovation. And so it's no wonder that we are living in an age of innovation, as Michaela said. There is so many initiatives, there's so many programs, there's a lot of new products coming to the market that at least tend to be innovative. But if we take a closer look, we're not so sure whether a lot of those products really are innovative. We have a lot of rankings and lists that show that we actually have, or seem to have understood how innovation works. So Switzerland, for example, always is one of the top countries when it is about innovation. Other countries as well. Every country has a certain field where it's particularly good at. So we get the impression that we have actually understood the mechanisms how innovation works. We need to invest, we need to follow a certain recipe or a certain program, and then as a result, we get innovation. Now, if you look at the measurements of all those indices, you see a lot of different parameters that are being used. And I think this is a strong sign that just to the case that we have so many different indices that we really haven't understood what kind of inputs, what kind of parameters really define innovation. If you look at the Global Innovation Index, which is a very famous one that ranks the country's innovation, you have inputs such as the use of electricity, which is being used as a measurement for innovation. Or you have the changing frequency of Wikipedia posts. And I think it is a good point to be quite critical whether those aspects are really part of being innovative. And you could even go further. The American economist, I don't remember his first name, Gordon is the last name. He actually said, Gordon, I keep coming up with Gordon Brown, but it's of course not Gordon. Sorry?
Not fast.
No.
That's cybernetic.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And anyway, I couldn't look at the name. And he said actually that in the past decades, we did not have any major breakthroughs in innovation in the area of transport, in the area of electricity, and in the area of medicine. Now, I'm not so sure about medicine, but in the other areas, I'm quite sure. We still drive around in the way we drove around decades ago. We still haven't had any major breakthrough in the area of electricity. So the counter thesis would be that actually we keep talking about innovation, but we're not that good at it as we think we are. So we haven't found it yet. Now, two different ways. If we now look at an industry where we certainly had innovation in the 10 years, which would be software, for example. So I think we have good cases on where we saw innovation. We can take 3 examples: Apple, Google, and then the whole movement around crowdsourcing, which would be Wikipedia or Firefox. So with Apple, we have seen a model which is based on a genuine approach. So you have one man, Steve Jobs, that used to be the driver, that used to seem to have the ability to actually foresee what people wanted and what innovation is. On the other hand, Google has a completely different approach. They keep releasing beta versions, trying to find out whether they actually work. So it's kind of a trial and error approach. Whenever something doesn't work, they take it off the market, they do something new. And then of course there's the most recent one where we work with open innovation, tapping the knowledge of the crowds, and we have seen impressive examples in the area of software programs such as Firefox, that actually a huge crowd of people working at different places in the world, different time zones, they have come up with a product that was actually better than the product of a commercial company, which was Microsoft's Internet Explorer. Now, if you compare those different models, you would probably come to the conclusion that even with Apple, there was a process behind the shiny surrounding, that there was a lot of trial and error. Only Apple kept it all inside, and they just released the product when it was finally coming out, when it was finally finished. Behind that, they had a lot of experimenting, they had a lot of trial and error as well. So probably the most honest way, the honest approach to innovation we see today, which would also be the basis in pharmaceuticals, is actually trial and error. It's the management of uncertainty. So we don't have a rational model on how we approach innovation. We just have, it's very basic, we have to try it out. Now, if we think about strategies, what can we do? The thesis is that there will not be something like a recipe that you can use for innovation. You can do benchmarking, you can learn from each other when it is about delivering a specific product or answering a question in a specific field. But when you think about genuine innovation, something new, that doesn't work because it does not yet exist. So benchmarking is also kind of a limiting approach. And then the thesis that came out of this book was actually that in order to go for innovation, we need to create something like an ecosystem. So we can't define the recipe, but we can define the context, the environment we're working in. And innovation needs to be, we had an interview with a professor in here, he said, innovation needs to be looked at something like a plant. So you can't really control how it grows, but you can make sure that it receives the right ingredients and it has good surrounding and the nice air that helps it growing. So what would that be? What would be the surroundings that we need for innovation? I think this could be something that could be useful for smart partnership. Well, the first thing I think is the ability, and this is what you do here, is to think beyond the traditional disciplines. Think beyond the areas that experts are talking about. So when we try to come up with an innovation on how we could help people to get to more food, it is surely not a problem of just technology. It is surely not a problem of just finding business models or political regulation. It needs all of that together. So you need interdisciplinary settings where people from different areas are approaching one subject. The second one is the one associated with being a cat. So people need squirrels. People need the freedom to think. In many Western countries, in universities, there is the challenge that whenever a new research program is being launched, there are very precise targets or goals that have been set in the beginning. And this limits people fundamentally in finding new direction, because maybe in the process they find they have a new finding that could lead the research in a complete other direction. And if they are forced to follow that, if they can't lead their own path, then it's going to be difficult. So you need a funding that allows people to do free research. The third thing that I think is important is to develop a culture of failure, which is associated with that one. Because when you do experiments, it is necessarily that you fail. But in today's world, failure is not really highly appreciated, and in many cases, it is being punished. So you should actually do the other way around. You should give away bonuses for people who fail. Probably not the ones that do illegal things. But we had recently a conversation with the CEO of Hublot Watches. That's some kind of luxury Swiss brand. And the CEO gave away a bonus for people that failed in his company, that started a new project and they didn't succeed. But he wanted those people to get a bonus that had the courage to do something new. The fourth point, I think, is that we need to start to define innovation in a broader way. So when we talk about innovation, it's mostly about technology. And of course, technology is an important driver. But there are different types of innovation. There are innovation in the area of business models, or what I think is extremely important is what we call social innovation. So in many cases, if you want a technology to be accepted in the public, you need to change certain things in the society. Maybe you need to educate people. Maybe you need to make a change in the regulation. During the Industrial Revolution, in many countries, the government started to introduce social welfare and social insurances, so that they made sure that people could actually be working in factories. So that was a social innovation that allowed the Industrial Revolution actually to take place. Or today in Switzerland, for example, a lot of newspapers, as you know, they go digital, they try to sell their products on iPads, and they have started to educate people how to use iPads. It's a very simple area. Or I can give you another example, and then I stop talking. As you might know, to tackle the challenge of the population getting older in Japan, they have developed robots that help elderly people to stay independent when they're old. And in the UK, in Switzerland, and in many other cases, robots that should take care of old people is highly unethical. So they conducted an interesting study. They asked senior citizens whether they could imagine having a robot at home that would take care of them. Then 88% of the people said, never, we don't want that. And then they reframed the question. They asked, would you have a robot if you do not have to go to a senior citizen home if you can stay independent? Then it changed. Then 66% of the people said, okay, in that case we would want them, but only if it looks friendly.
Yeah.
And so you might have seen the pictures. Those robots, they look like bears. And I never really understood it, but it's because people don't want anonymous machines. And so the factor that will be responsible that this innovation will find its way to the people is not the power of the sensors or the engineering arts. It's the way whether we can make it to find the way to the people. And that brings us back to innovation as being something very simple, being translated to the people and making understood. It's not a question of having supercomputers. And it's the question, then I go back to create a mindset. Yeah, I think that's it.
But he has a supercomputer.
Supercomputers are very nice, but you can't trust them in all the way.
This is not an insight that we have at the end of the day. About what is called systemic innovation, right? I just picked up something from the nature of technology. And they were saying that creative, there are two types of innovation. One is the types of thinking, such as rearranging the furniture, and we do that all the time. And the second is one which could be called creative innovation, which is what we talked about. But about rearranging furniture, you did what? So maybe you did. Slightly. Is that innovation? Both Omar and Luke are out, so I don't know which one is the real Omar. So there are those two. Yeah, please.
Together,
Yeah.
I wanted to add to this culture of failure that Johnson & Johnson have established an award for the executive who did not of mistakes to the unless you do try, you won't do mistakes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
encouraging people to try and experiment even if they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a simple comment. If you do Ngram, Google Ngram, the word innovation started appearing only in 60s. Does it therefore mean that earlier there was no innovation? No, just a minute. So that's what I'm saying. You see, innovation has now acquired a particular strict connotation. Everything is not innovation. There are technological innovation, there are systemic innovation. A huge amount of the future, organizational innovation, business innovation. So there is now almost a taxonomy of innovation. And what you are saying is right, that people talk of innovation without seeing the taxonomy. What type of innovation are you referring to? So it has become a buzzword. To the extent that if you read Godin's article on history of innovation as a term, it has now entered popular imagery. Even modernization is viewed as innovation. So I think you are absolutely right that the general use of the term innovation has become very confusing. But if you really wanted to put it in a strategic or policy perspective, then we have to start by clearly saying this is what it is.
Okay. I think we'll need to go further, and then we'll take because so Luke probably will follow, and Omar will kind of pull together, and then we'll have. Otherwise, we have different. Yeah, Luke. I put you in as smart procurement, simply to remind ourselves that we did discuss about smart procurement, but we don't discuss about.
I was going to talk about 2 or 3 things. So, first of all, I did miss your discussion on the insect world, but I was reminded of the mantra of one of the heroes of the 20th century, Muhammad Ali: float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I'm going to talk about 2 topics around not innovation itself, but policy for innovation, how we drive innovation in an economy for the benefit of the citizens of a country. And I'm going to start on the supply side and then move to the demand side. So when we come to supply, a lot of the discussion that goes on in these dialogues, even if it's not framed that way, is about where you put your investments. You have some resources. How do you spend them on research and on innovation? And of course, the words that always comes to mind is priorities. We were talking about Latin. It's the thing that comes first. What are you going to do first? And I'm sure many of you have experienced that the world of science doesn't really like priorities. If you ask the scientists themselves to give you priorities, they resist. They resist even more if you say to them, if you want to spend more on X, we're going to have to cut Y. Tell me what Y is. A Dutch colleague named this second group posteriorities, the things that you want to leave behind. Yeah. Quite logical, I think. So, as a response to this, pretty well every country has come up with a list of technological priorities, and the rhetoric under these is that they will support national competitiveness, they will meet social goals, and so on. Now, the problem is, all of those lists are pretty much exactly the same. They all say biotechnology, information and communications technology, materials, perhaps blending into nanotechnology, and so on. And environment. So what does it mean if you have a priority as broad as this? A few years ago, I was helping the Japanese government produce its first basic plan for science and technology, and in that plan they had environment down as a priority for science. And when they went back at the end and asked themselves, did we actually make it a priority, they found that 60% of all the science they were doing in the country had managed to classify itself as being something to do with the environment. So it was no help at all in directing resources. Now, in European thinking, the kind of people who give out money for regions to develop actually have a lot more money than the people who give out money for research, have come up with a new concept, and this concept is called smart specialization. And the idea is they're not going to give you any money unless you come up with, in their minds, what are real priorities, not these generic ones. And real means that they are tailored to the real needs of the region or country that you're talking about. That's supposed to be the smart bit. So very likely they will fall within the broad headings that I mentioned before, and some other things as well. But they have to be taken down to a level of granularity where they are meaningful and make things actually different for the country that we're concerned with. And they don't have to be high research, they can be innovation of the kind that we were just discussing as well. Now, within this concept, not only do they define an objective of this kind, but also there's a certain process that must be followed. Again, you're not authorized to get these funds unless you've been through a process which they describe as entrepreneurial discovery. And what that means is having a great deal more engagement, particularly from the business community, in setting national priorities. Because in the end, a great part of innovation, even if it's for public service, is still driven by businesses. And mostly they tend to stay out of these dialogues, particularly smaller firms. For various reasons, I ended up being asked by the European Commission to be their, the right word isn't very clear, but a kind of inspector advisor for Malta when it was developing its smart specialization strategy. No, it wasn't actually. It was, they found, well, indirectly, they found the fact that we had run an industry workshop on innovation policy 5 years before and said, this is what we want, can you help them do more? So with Jennifer and her colleagues, we did design one of these processes. We ran a whole series of consultations, first of all with the public sector, analysing the strengths and weaknesses of the economy, and then a series of focus groups with I was probably in the end a majority of any firm that could be said to be engaged in innovation, a very wide range from large foreign FDIs through to small startups within the country. And one of the things that they're looking for in this are models of transformation. How do you actually change what you do. And there's a good list they have, which acts as a checklist that if you take a sector, you should take it on one of these 4 paths. You could transform it, modernize it, diversify it, or go into something radically new. And the last one, you have to be quite careful. So just to give examples to these words, in terms of transformation, mainly because of a favourable tax regime, Malta had attracted a lot of financial services activity, and following that, being a base for international web-based gambling. That's not something that